Hey everyone, how you doing today? As mentioned in the daily financial news, we have the legend and lovely. See how I did there? I flipped it around. Anna Kelly with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm getting more legendary as we go. So I don't know what to think about that, but I'll take it
There,
today.
there you go. Well, I don't know if you've ever come back and watched some of our videos, but the comment that the audience truly loves you. They truly
Thank
love
you.
love what you do. You know what I want to do here is I'm actually having somebody add to the course how to get started one rental at a time, which you have and your two oldest kids have. He's actually adding self-management because again, one of the things I love about all these experts I have is they bring their expertise, right? You added content around raising money, right? For example. And I'm like, you know what? I don't self-manage. We should add that. And I'm like, you know what? I talk to Anna every Wednesday. I know she has done some self-management. So let's talk about why do you do it? When do you do it? Why not to do it? Because again, I've never done it.
Sure. So, management of properties, there's so many things that goes into what is right for you, right?
Mhm.
And every asset, every investor is going to really have a different right answer depending on where you are, what your financial goals are, how much time you have available, and how much you want to learn about the management of your properties, right? So if you want to be a totally passive investor, you love your job, you love what you do, you're just looking at real estate as an alternative to the stock market, alternative to currencies, and you want to start investing in things like REITs or syndications or whatnot. You buy a property or two for yourself. You want it to be passive. You better just make sure that when you're buying it, you build in the fact that you're going to pay a management fee, whatever the going rate is. You build it into your purchase price. You
Mhm.
build it into your projected cash flows. Put it with the management company. Set it and forget it. You'll never regret it.
Mhm.
Hey, that rhymed,
There you go.
right? um, so that's when you totally want to be passive. You have no interest in being involved in the nitty gritty or learning too much about it. You just want a certain return on your money.
Mhm.
And the more money you have when you start out, the easier it is to do that because you've got chunks of cash you can invest to buy these properties to create a cash flow.
Mhm.
But what happens with a lot of investors who are starting out one rental at a time, like we did, is we really had no money. We had no time, but we made time, right? But we really had no money. And so in the beginning, I could not afford to pay a painter. I had to learn to paint. If it was going to cost me $1,000 to paint my apartment and I had 3 days to do it, I didn't have $1,000 in my checking account to pay for the painter. I
Yeah.
used every penny I had to put as the down payment on my properties. And my husband and I said, we better learn and we better learn how to be landlords because I can't afford to pay the management company 10%. We'll
Mhm.
never learn if we're doing that because we don't know what we don't know and we won't cash flow. So, but we knew, we're going to buy an older property. It's going to need some work. We're going to learn how to fix it up. We're going to raise the rents. We're going to raise the value. Then we'll take the equity and we'll use it to buy more. And what we figured out is when we were leveraging those properties, highly leveraged, taking out the second, putting it down on the next one,
Oh yeah.
our cash flow went down on the existing property, but it served its purpose to give us the big chunk of cash on the next one. So we made a very cognizant decision that even though it could be less of a headache to give it to a management company, we wanted to go all in. We wanted to learn. We wanted to use this extra money to build up enough monthly cash flow to allow me to replace my income.
Mhm.
And so self management was the right option for me. And it allowed us to learn a tremendous amount that we wouldn't have learned before.
Oh, for sure.
So those are just two different extremes where one option is totally off the table. One could be a really good option. And then after you ask me questions, I can tell you about different models I use for different properties now.
Yeah, the biggest question I just want to make sure we get out here is self-management. I'm going to say, but maybe you'll disagree, is certainly easier if you live within 30 minutes of where you're investing, right?
Yes.
If you're 2 or 3 hours away, or heaven forbid, states away, trying to self-manage that's probably not a great idea.
Yes, I agree. Yes. And so, when we got started, we decided we're only going to buy local where we
Mhm.
can get there and touch it within 20 minutes.
Got it.
So, between our home and my husband's business and my mother-in-law that had my kids, we were crossing a triangle every day and we said if we can find something that's on our path,
Yeah.
to and from where we go every day, if there's an emergency, we can stop in.
Right.
If a tenant really needs something, we can drive by. If we want to just say, hey, are they mowing their own grass? Do things look good? We could see it and touch it and feel it. And that definitely played into the decision to self-manage. Anyone who's buying, especially if you've never done it before and you're buying properties out of state, hiring a management company, you absolutely need to do. You'll regret it if you try to self-manage.
Yeah, you got to put, and again, like you said in your outline, is put it in the spreadsheet. Just run it with 10% or whatever the property management's charging. And yes, that makes the deal harder to cash flow, but nobody said this was easy, right? Just
right.
keep doing the work. And then
And that's so important, Michael, because so many people that I see that are doing deals, they're like, I don't make anything, and they're like, well, what did you think when you bought it?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you paid, $210 and you only get $1,400 a month. You don't meet the 1% rule.
Yeah.
And so, people buy just, they like the property and they think, oh, I'll make some money on it. And they don't really look at the numbers. So you have to build in management. And the other thing is you could get to a point and people think, well, I'm going to self-manage, so I'm not going to build it in. But you're going to get to a point where your life changes. You have a job transfer, you have health issues, your children grow up, where you simply don't have the time, and you've got to be able to pay a property manager at that point. So it has to be built in as an assumption day one, even if you think you're going to self-manage it.
Yeah. And then you get to a point with self-management. It's one thing to, in my experience, right, just owning these, it's one thing to self-manage a house where, in my experience, turnover is a lot less, headaches are a lot less than, say, a 10 unit of all one bedrooms where they're like 5 and 5 in a courtyard in the middle.
Yes.
The tenant, I don't know, headache is far greater when you have that many people that close together. It's an entirely different ballgame, right? And I could see myself self-managing a house if I had to. I would. You could not pay me to self-manage a 10 unit kind of all on top of each other complex.
Yeah, the headache factor definitely goes up. Calls at 11 o'clock at night that somebody took my parking spot, or somebody has a party and they're still making noise. And it's like, if they're making noise and it's past the noise ordinance, knock on their door nicely and tell them to turn it down. And if they don't, you call the police. But you don't call me at 11 o'clock at night because I'm not coming out there.
Yeah.
It's those kind of things that, do you really want your life disrupted every time someone has a fight over trash or parking or noise or anything, dog
barking. Yeah.
It's like you just get people complaining that don't want to be adults and deal with things on their own. So it does become all consuming. And again, sometimes I tell some of my coaching students, if the property's close, do it for a little bit so that you learn. And I will help you as things come up, like, how do you deal with this, so that you learn. Yeah. But at some point you're going to want to, give it off to the PM. Then you kind of understand and value what they do because you've had to do it yourself. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad I've never had to self-manage. So I know you have different management styles today after doing this. So why don't you outline all the different self-management or management, I should say, all the different management types you have today.
Sure. So eventually, with the properties that we own locally, we hired a property manager to work for us directly. Nice. We're in a smaller market, and this is where market really does impact sometimes your management decision. Mm-hmm. If you're in a big city, you might have 20 property management companies that you can go to. And if one does a horrible job, you fire them and you find another one, right? If you're in a market like me in central Pennsylvania, that's fairly rural compared to a big city, right? Mm-hmm. You've got 5 or 6 small towns, surrounding the Capitol building, and you might have, and we have 3 property management companies that serve, 100-mile radius. If they don't do a good job, it's hard to find somebody that will, and that'll come out to where your properties are. Because every time they have a problem, they have to send someone to get on the road and drive 20 minutes to get to the property. Yeah. So the property management fee's a little higher. You end up with a backlog where they can't get to you for a week, and the tenants are screaming every day because it's taken a week for the PM company to do something. And it just becomes harder to do it. And so when we created the scale of having enough rental units that we could hire that out, instead of hiring a PM company, I hired a property manager to work for me directly. And the same way that I asset manage a very large property management company, I asset manage my property manager who works for me. So we have a weekly touch point when she goes over issues, asks for my feedback, asks what I want to do. And it's a very similar model to what we do every week on our very large multifamily complexes, where we get on the call with the regional manager and the property manager, and we say, tell us what's going on with our property every week.
Very cool. Now, when did you make that shift locally? Was that after you retired or before?
After.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, and this is the other thing that I really want to drive home, just because somebody does something one way doesn't mean that's the right way for you, right? For ourselves in our particular situation, my husband had a very small business. He was a chiropractor and he was open 3 days a week. And he actually enjoys working with his hands. He actually enjoys getting out there and mowing and being like, I've got my day. I can get out in the sunshine and go mow and check on things and trim some hedges. He enjoys that.
Wow.
And he had 2 days a week to do it. So since he really liked that side of it, I'm like, hey, if you want to save us having to have a property manager and you're willing to go out 2 days a week and take care of whatever needs to, work with the contractors and essentially PM it, but not be the person working on it himself, just calling all the people that we need, all the trades, then if that gives you joy and allows me to keep buying buildings, that's what we're going to do.
Thumbs up.
So part of that was, our first talk about marriage. What do you do to make this work for you and your partner? He didn't want to be involved in the finances and checking account and all that. He's just like, hey, I'll go out and mow and make sure they look good. And he gets joy in seeing that he's trimmed the hedges and planted flowers. And so that was great. But at some point, our kids got, older, and 2 of them every night need a different parent to take them somewhere. So 4 kids, and it's like, okay, 4:00, we both have to be done with work. Yeah. And we value our time too much to do it ourselves anymore. And so it wasn't until I retired and he said, okay, I'm buying more and more and more and more after I retired from corporate, right? I just went all in full-time real estate. And the more I bought, it just wasn't feasible. And he finally said, yeah, let's just hire it all out and let's travel. And that's what we've done.
That is awesome. Oh, Anna, this has been a great week. Thank you for all these discussions. Where can people follow you or be a part of your mission?
Sure. Great. Greaterpurposecapital.com is where I talk about kind of our multifamily deals and the type of properties we're trying to buy where we're really making an impact on the community. And reimom.com is my website for coaching, speaking events, etc. And then on Facebook, I'm Anna, REI Mom Kelly.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Anna. Have fun. And you are a legend and lovely.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Michael.
You got it.